I had a chance to watch this film this past week called All Cheerleaders Die. And I was so pleasantly surprised by this movie. I was so blown away, but I had such a good time with it. And now this movie, All Cheerleaders Die, is playing as a part of the AMC Independent program, which is one of the things I'm most proud about being a part of AMC. It's a commitment from AMC to take independent films and play them where audiences actually go to see films. And we have it's over 60 markets across the US where we have these theaters dedicated to playing independent film, and All Cheerleaders Die is a part of that. And I'm really excited right now to have two of the stars of that film with me, Miss Caitlin Stasey and Sianoa Smit-McPhee. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so first of all, for people who have not seen, if you have not seen the trailer to this, look in the description of the video. We're going to put in a link down there so you can watch the trailer to this film. But for people who don't know much about it, Caitlin, let's start with you. What is All Cheerleaders Die?
Well, it's a story about cheerleaders being brutally murdered, as you can imagine. No, it's about a young girl who sort of finds her way into the popular group after being an outcast for a while, and from then on out, sort of chaos sort of happens to follow it. You go on.
Like my side of the
I don't want to give too
story-
much away.
My side of the story is that we have had a relationship before the movie started, and I'm a little bit too obsessive of her, and she runs away from me, and she has other ulterior motives to get away. And she basically goes off with cheerleaders and stuff, and I get jealous and start stalking them down and stuff, and then stuff happens, and I get involved, and become like a mother or something to all the cheerleaders, and it's kind of like, a story of like everyone finding their own version of love, a weird version of love.
Weird, bloody version of deathy love.
I mean, my character's version is pretty much like just finding her weird love story, but everyone else's is like their own
Mine's just more of
trip.
retribution and
revenge.
hatred.
Well, here's one of the most interesting things about the film is that after I watched it, I was talking to a friend of mine, and they said, so what is it, a horror? And I stopped for a second. I thought, on the surface, you'd think it's a horror, but it's a mixture of so many different genres. Like, how would you describe the film?
I kind of just like watch it. Yeah, it's like, it's...
We definitely, I don't know if this was the same experience for you, but when we went to the premiere, I think they were very clever in that they never really exposed to us the sense of humor behind it all.
Right.
So we were taking ourselves incredibly seriously. And then these lines would occur that the audience would find hysterical, and we were like,
What?
That was the best.
Yeah, that was like the serious part for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll because we've been a part of the film so long and seen it so many times and everything, I don't really know what other people are seeing it like, because I'm just like, my friend was saying she closed her eyes 10 times in the film, and I'm like, where? I closed my eyes twice. What's the other
And you're
times?
particularly squeamish.
And I'm particularly a baby, so it's just like a fun film. It's like high school. It's like quirky. It's comedy. It's like horror. It's like some gory parts. There's blood. There's a lot of blood and
but
screaming.
It's not parody. I wouldn't say that it was on parody. I think that it definitely has homages to other sort of tongue-in-cheek horror films.
Right.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think it's very self-aware. If that can be a category of film, it is a self-aware film.
Yeah, it's we took it seriously. We know that it's a bit quirky and on its own box kind of thing. Yeah, that's what they did. They created their own box for a film that you can't really describe and be like, oh, it's this kind of film.
Yeah, it's like when you get into iTunes and they have electro dance, folk funk. You're like, I don't know what that is, but that's where we are.
But it's good. It's fun. It's a fun film. I like watching it, so.
Now, you mentioned the one thing about how it's not parody. And a lot of films, when you see on the surface like this, you think it could really easily get into parody. But what I found was that the humor in the film, they really pushed the humor right up to there, but they never crossed that line. Mm-hmm. So you have these really great scares, some horrific moments, then it's juxtaposed immediately with some really great belly laugh kind of humor at the same without crossing that line. Mm-hmm. What do you think the key was for this movie walking that balance so well, that it brings in the humor and the horror, but never kind of becomes campy either way?
That they kept us in the dark the entire time. Because there's a sense of when you're doing comedy that you're working for laughs, that you're working for the sake of making an audience laugh. Because we were never privy to that intention, we were just acting as seriously as possible. It's like watching The Room. Nobody intended for that movie to be hysterical.
I've never heard anybody want to compare their own film to The Room.
No,
that's great.
But
This is a
The Room
first.
is my favorite film, so I think that's a cinematic masterpiece, to be honest with you.
Now, there are a couple of really cool things socially in this film too, but one of the ones that really stood out to me, and I love this moment, we were actually talking about it before the show started. In horror films sometimes, even the horror films that have, the female lead as the hero, inevitably at some point, the guy has to save her for her to continue on with her journey. And without giving too much away, there's this brilliant scene where the good, clean-cut kid, the good guy, shows up on his motorcycle, and Caitlin, it was your line, it was something along the lines of, I don't need you to save me, or I don't need you to save the day, and then you just take his motorcycle and you go off and do your own business. Was that like a deliberate thing to really draw attention to that, look, you can have a female hero without a guy having to save her, or did that just kind of fortuitously work out that way?
I think, to be honest, which is even more striking, is that it just made sense. It didn't feel like, a stipulation that we were like, okay, film has to pass the Bechdel test, film has to be feminine, like empowering of women. It was just easy because Lucky feels that way, as you should, feels that way about women and about female protagonists. And I think that it lent itself to the feeling of these women being on their own and that being okay, and that we don't need male counterparts necessarily.
Yeah.
And there's also another thing you don't see very often these days is you have an all-female, really intense emotional love triangle going on. So talk about how you decided to take your character, because we see the emotion most in the whole triangle. Yeah, the reason I'm pointing the poster is because
I just love Brooke so much.
she was great in the film, but the emotion, like you're the one who kind of felt spurned in it, and the way you brought your emotion to the front of that. Talk about the triangle and why it worked.
I mean, it worked because they're two beautiful girls.
3.
I mean, it's just real. So anything that's like a real story that anyone can relate to, I guess it's going to work, whether it's,
because, I mean, romantic love between anybody is legitimate. So I feel like more and more you're seeing, like, protagonists having fluid sexualities because it's just not a... It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. And I kind of loved that it was so showcased in this and in such a sort of forward way and illuminating, I think, because, a lot of people would assume that there always has to be a male romantic lead or a male sort of driven sort of arc, because a lot of times you watch films and the only adventure worthy of a young woman is falling in love. Mm-hmm. And of course there's an element of that, but these characters all have their own drives and their own motivations despite that, I think.
And it's just happening all the time usually, but nobody really focuses into that for a film or something. It's not the usual topics for a film, so it's really unique, but not that unique in normal people world.
Yeah, but I like that it doesn't really classify as like an LGBTQIA film.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It just is a theme, and that's normal.
Yeah, it never came across my mind reading the script like, oh, this is a really like women-driven film. I was just like, oh, cool film, I'm gonna do this film. And then after it's all the questions, everyone's like, this is a really power women film. And I was like, yeah, okay, I guess, yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I enjoyed the film very much. We were talking about behind stage here. It was a pleasant surprise to me. A lot of things you wouldn't expect. It wasn't the movie I thought it was going to be. It just exceeded everything I thought. It's funny, it's exciting, it's got really cool mythology to it as well. So congratulations, guys. Watch for All Cheerleaders Die in a select AMC theater near you. Go on over to www.amctheaters.com and look up All Cheerleaders Die for this great film. You guys, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on the film. We can't wait to see it again on screen.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
All right, guys, listen, it's time for us to go into mailbag. But before I do, Chris Lee, you think this is a horror film you might actually be able to watch?
See, now Caitlin and Sianoa just ruined my whole day. Because this is a film that I would never go see because I'm afraid of my own shadow because of seeing Candyman and Chucky and all those other films that scared me for life when I was a kid. But now I see these great girls that tell this great story and make it sound so fun and fantastic, and I'm just so afraid that I'm going to get there and there's just going to be so much blood. And then what do? I don't know what to do at that point.
Hey everyone, if you liked this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.